All right. Hey, everybody. How you doing today?
Hello, hello.
All right. Production team, if you can go ahead and start the screen share, we can go ahead and get started.
Hey.
All right. Good deal. So, welcome in, y'all. So, my name is PC Eddie Online, and my co host is CalamityDarling. And today we're going to be talking through what it's like to be Black women in gaming. If the presentation will work. There we go. So today we're going to be kind of talking through a couple different things. So we'll kind of introduce y'all to who we are, what community has been like for us in gaming, kind of some things that we've seen about the gaming industry, and then what's coming in the future. All right, Calamity, you can go ahead.
All right, so I'm Calamity. I am a variety and charity streamer on Twitch. I'm also starting to branch out into other venues as well. So I'm also trying to become a fully rounded content creator on YouTube, TikTok, all of the above. I have a lot of advocacy, that's the word I'm looking for mental health and neurodiversity on my channel because I have struggled with a lot of mental health, being neurodiverse and late diagnosed, especially for BIPOC people, because unfortunately in these communities, mental health and neurodiversity are not talked about enough. So that is something I definitely like to promote on my channel and discuss. I am also the fundraising and charity lead for Brown Girl Gamer Code. They are a group of Black and Brown women who advocate for equity in the gaming and tech spaces for women of color and non-men of color. I am also actually an early career game developer, writer, and narrative designer. I'm actually going to be taking a course this summer where I'm going to be diving deep into game development with a few other students, and we're going to be developing a full game within 3 months. And just a little bit about me, I'm an RPG and fantasy lover. I love a good fantasy story. And I'm actually starting to get into cosplay. So that's a bit about me. Pizza.
Yeah, and so I'm also a content creator here online. So predominantly, I'm a variety streamer on Twitch. For y'all who are maybe unaware, like maybe not as familiar with the Twitch platform, that essentially just means that I don't just play one game every time that I hit go live. So I kind of bounce all over the place when it comes to playing games and creating content on the Twitch website. I also run a YouTube channel that is admittedly not super active at the present moment, where I focus on doing tech reviews, some unboxing, and then occasionally information for other content creators and streamers. I am also a member of the Bronco Gamer Code community, where I'm a recently added co-community manager, and I write occasionally, so I'll write game reviews and I will write predominantly fiction stories. My heart definitely lies with science fiction and fantasy, predominantly fantasy stories. I'm a huge fan of indie games. For those of y'all who maybe aren't familiar with the term indie game either, that essentially just means games that are not produced by really large studios. So studios like Nintendo, Sony, they will work with indie developers, so typically smaller teams working to produce games and see a little bit more creativity at times with indie games than with larger teams. And I am also aspiring to be a skateboarder. I have not been on my skateboard since the last time I fell off and just completely ate it. So, we're working back up to it. And so, well, that is the wrong direction. There we go. So, a little bit of kind of how I got to where I am. I I won't say that I grew up playing games. So I think that I really got into gaming more so during like late middle school into high school. So my parents really wanted my sister and I to be a little bit more engaged in like sports, band, and just like reading. So the first games that I remember playing are like Pokemon Gold and Silver. So Pokemon definitely holds a cool place in my heart, but I when I got into high school, I started watching a lot of Let's Plays on YouTube. And so those are videos where people will like play a video game that they have pre recorded and put it up on YouTube. And when I was in grad school, I had a little bit extra income working a summer job. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna see if I can do this because it was something that I had really been looking to do for a really long time, but had never really had the courage to like actually try it out. So in that summer between years 1 and 2 of grad school, I actually bought a capture card and a monitor so that I could capture my Nintendo Switch, and I hit the go live button about 3 years ago. And the last 3 years, I've kind of been building up what is now being referred to as like Pizza Yeti Makes. And so that's kind of how I got to where we're at. A lot has happened over the last 3 years. It was really cool. Last week was E3, and I got to be a part of one of the indie devs booths and be a featured streamer for them. So it's been a bit of a journey.
Yeah, just want to throw in if you ever want an indie game recommendation, ask Pizza for sure. I have gotten so many games because of her. So for a little bit of how I got to where I am now, I actually kind of grew up playing video games because both of my parents are really big into technology, and they started seeing that games were being used to educate people, well, young kids when it came to like learning math and science and stuff. So I was given those games and I really liked the game aspects, maybe a little more than the learning. They did help me learn. So I've been playing games kind of since then. I was a little older when I started getting to more like formal video games that weren't just for education. I think the first one I ever played, I got a Game Boy Color and I played Frogger and one of the Legend of Zelda games, Oracle of Seasons, which definitely has a very special place in my heart. That's one of the first like stories I really got to experience outside of more of the educational games. So the Zelda series is very dear to me. I was a big dramatic kid growing up. I loved dress up, fantasy, make believe. I'd always create stories for my sister and I to kind of like run around our backyard and act out. So I've definitely been involved in a lot of those aspects, which I do think ended up lending to being a live streamer and content creator now. I actually did not get into content creation until about a year ago. I was kind of in a similar situation to Pizza where I was really scared too. I saw Let's Plays on YouTube. I thought that was really cool. I started hearing about streamers, thought that was really cool. But I just kind of always thought maybe it wasn't for me. You know, I kind of got wrapped into the you have to have a practical job thing. So I was doing that for a while. But then, of course, last year happened, the pandemic hit, and I got laid off from my job. So I kind of said, well, if there's any time to do it, now is the time. So I hit live last June, just celebrated our 1 year anniversary this past year. Since then, I've gotten to meet so many incredible people, interact with amazing creators, especially creators of color. And it's just been a wonderful journey that has been life changing for me. I'm finally feeling like I am where I'm meant to be. So that is how I got more into the content creation side of things. When it came to game development, I was in school. I was going back to school to learn film and digital media. They cut the film concentration from the digital media program at my school. So I said, well, I don't really know what I want to do. But they were looking into a web developer at my current job. So I started learning about development, which got me into this computer science program for software development. Again, pandemic hit, couldn't really go back to school anymore. And I started looking into like game dev because I was like, I really like games. Why don't I try to maybe look into becoming a game dev and what that looks like and kind of that past when it comes to creating stories and characters and such has now becoming a real career for me in the realm of games. So I am early career. I'm just getting started, but I'm really, really looking forward to see where I go. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, and I think you and I met just about a year ago because
Yes.
you started streaming. So
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
testament to the fact that like gaming and content creation leads to also some pretty cool friendships. So
Definitely.
yeah, all right. So this next portion that we're going to talk about is what community in gaming looks like. So Calamity, if you want to go ahead and get started talking about kind of what the industry shift has looked like in gaming, um, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. A lot of indie studios maybe saw it first because they were smaller and more able to interact with the communities that were enjoying their games. But there has been a big shift in brands recognizing the strength of community focused work. And I think we're actually seeing that outside of the gaming community as well. People are realizing that community is really important to a brand. Interacting with your audience, listening to the people that interact with your product is extremely important. So I can't tell you how many community manager job postings I have seen lately. It's honestly been pretty wild, but I think it's really important that people are starting to recognize the importance of building communities within these spaces, because that really does, like, community is everything. That gets people talking, interacting, and if you don't have a strong community backing you, if something goes wrong, it can very easily kind of go south for you. So they're starting to really see the importance of gaining people's trust through community management. So that is one of the big shifts we are seeing. We can kind of talk about one of those communities, Brown Girl Gamer Code, which is very, very close to both of us. We are both a part of that. So, Pizza.
Yeah, and then I did want to highlight one of the brands that we've seen in particular that has really kind of like committed to being involved with the community is the Apex Legends community
Mm,
and brand. So, what was really cool is that Apex and the team over at Respawn actually partnered with Brown Girl Gamer Code because they saw that we had a pretty active Apex community within the code. And so we actually got to do like an Apex Academy and tournament hosted with Respawn, which was really cool and just like felt like one of the benefits of engaging with a community around whatever sort of product you create is that you actually like get to see the love that people have for what you have
mm,
created. And so getting the chance to work with a brand like Apex, which is a I don't know that it's classified as a first person shooter, but I think that that's what it is. Getting to see a brand like that engage with a community just because they saw the value that we would bring to the table was really cool. So yeah, like Calamity was talking about earlier, Brown Girl Gamer Code is our main goal is to create space for Black women and women of color in gaming and tech. So that kind of looks like a couple different things. A large part of our community is engaged in some sort of content creation. So we have Twitch streamers, we have writers, we have YouTubers, some of the other content sites. So we've got some people who are starting to be and gain traction on TikTok as well. But really, it's a space that has been created that allows Black women and women of color to come together around this shared love of gaming and not have to like hide the fact that we are women of color as we're playing games. So what we'll talk about in the community a lot is how like toxic and sometimes harmful, especially playing games online can be, as well as kind of being women of color on a platform like Twitch. And so being able to kind of come back to a sort of like home base and be able to be like, yeah, it was just real exhausting today having to deal with X, Y, or Z that maybe popped up. But then also just being able to just like jump into a game together and play. So something we did in the last week was we had a mini community night where we played this game called Unrailed, which is essentially you're working together with a group of up to 4 trying to build train tracks so that your train won't crash and like all of these other things are also happening as it's all going on. And so just being able to just like exist and be ourselves as we are playing like a pretty wide range of games has been really really important, I think, particularly over the last year and a half as the world kind of shifted and people realized that we needed to start facilitating online relationships. Being able to go back to Brown Girl Gamer Code and just like be like, man, today was kind of hard or today was great. Anybody available to just like jump on a game and just like chill and hang out has been really cool. Clemens, did you want to add anything to that?
yeah, just like the fact that these spaces are created, because you of course get the people who are like, well, why do you need a Brown Girl Gamer Code? Why do you need these spaces? And I think a lot of us can understand why, but it is because we feel safe in these spaces. Not everywhere is safe for women and femmes of color. So having that kind of space you can go into and being able to express your joys or whatever hardships you're going through to people who genuinely understand your journey because they are going through something similar, has been life changing. I just to kind of say my personal experience with them has been, again, life changing. I don't know where I'd be as a creator, as a creative, even as a game developer without this community, and that's why community is so important. This is just one amazing example of how impactful that can be.
Yeah, and then we also wanted to shout out, they're not necessarily on the slide, but Black Girl Gamers also does some
Mhm.
really, really important work in the space. So I'd encourage y'all to also check them out. You can find both groups on Twitter, but Calamity and I are both a part of Brown Girl Gamer Code, and so that was why we had chosen to focus on this group. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out to either of us after the talk, and we'd definitely love to talk to y'all about it a little bit more. But yeah, that's kind of what community and gaming has looked like for us.
Mhm.
All right, so this next slide is what's with the gaming industry. So right now we're going to kind of talk about some of the problems that we have seen, or like some of the pressure points that we have seen with the gaming industry currently, and then kind of talk about what's been changing. So like the slide says, we have seen that a lack of these BIPOC characters and developers um, lead to stories that matter to us not being told, or being told in a way that is not authentic to the experience of the people. Or we'll see them being included as like a token character. And so they're a side character who's either there to like be a stereotype, or be there to say, hey, we did have a person who wasn't white in our video game. But Calamity, what else have you seen recently?
I've seen a lot of, especially like people saying, "Oh, look, we have," that was my big one, is that we have people who are saying, "Oh, look, we have a person of color in our video game," and it's like a side character who's maybe there for 5 seconds, or holds a lot of stereotypes that aren't true and does not show the diversity that can be within these BIPOC spaces. There is a big problem with when people in the industry of color try to speak about it. There is a lot of backlash, which is unfortunate. Even to the extent where people minding their business on the internet are getting trolled and hate messaged, and it really stinks, because we want to exist in this space just like everybody else, but we can't, because unfortunately the world is going to see us as Black, the world is going to see us as people of color, as women of color, even further. So that is definitely one of the big problems. I was actually, when we were preparing for this, when it came to characters in games, I was looking into, I was just curious. I was like, well, how many like Black women characters are there? There weren't many. And the ones that I did look up, I was just really curious. I'm like, oh man, I wonder who's voicing these. And a lot of them were being voiced by white women. Um, Very, very, very common, especially with past video games. So even though we're seeing those faces on screen, even for a moment, they are being voiced by not us, which is including us, but not really including us. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's why we wanted to also make sure that we were talking about some stuff that is changing with the gaming industry. So last weekend, Calamity and I had the opportunity to kind of co-host a it's called the Wholesome Game Showcase. So they kind of facilitated and curated a list of games that's coming out that predominantly are by indie studios, but also have like aspects that are maybe a little bit different than games that you would typically be seeing in advertisements. So it was really cool to also notice that when we left like the main E3 kind of vibe and areas, when
Mhm.
we got into the Wholesome Game Showcase, a lot of the games that were featured like have BIPOC characters, and have like gender fluid characters and LGBTQIA people in their games, and I think that that was just like indie games have really, like this slide says, have taken the lead in introducing diverse casts and stories into the industry. And so being able to see this like shift for smaller studios to also be introducing characters who look like the world looks has been really encouraging to see. Calamity, I know that you are interested in entering into your career as a game dev, so what is that going to look like for you?
Kind of me personally, when it comes to what I hope to do. I One of my big things is, I kind of expressed before, that I have a love for fantasy, and I grew up with like a lot of sci-fi in my life. Like my dad is a big like Star Wars and Star Trek fan, so I can't choose. Sorry, but I would love to see more people of color in those kinds of stories as well. So many times when you do see BIPOC characters, they also bring their trauma with them. They bring the trauma that we experience all the time. And we can't deny that a lot of us play video games as a means to escape, as a means to get away from everything. So on one hand, the games that do highlight these things are just as important and, you know, just as useful. But I also want to bring maybe some of the Black joy and maybe some positives from that side and bring them into a lot of sci-fi and fantasy spaces, and make them not just token characters, not just side characters, but the main character, and make them, you know, very diverse in not just the fact that they are a person of color, but in their personality and the things that they are interested in their journeys, so that more people can see themselves represented and it doesn't just look like one thing. So that is something that I definitely want to bring into the gaming industry. And like I said, I have a deep love for fantasy. So definitely in those spaces, because why can't we see Black people being these, you know, people that look like me, being these incredible, powerful heroes, these incredible characters that are also, you know, have to go through the hero's journey and grow. And yeah, a lot of, a lot of that stuff I could go off, but I could go off. I really could, but I'll stop it there because that's just the first step that I want to take.
Yeah, I feel that. No, I think that that's really it's going to be really exciting to see, particularly with the program that you'll be in this summer, to see kind of how that continues to develop.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of representation in games, we did want to highlight some games that we are excited about that are coming in the future or have already come out. So you'll see on this slide a couple of the games that we have highlighted are Spirit Swap, which is just had a honestly a really successful Kickstarter campaign. Really excited to see that game come out. Oxenfree is a game that was developed by a, I believe, Black owned dev studio. That and they have a couple games that have come out over the last couple of years. We have Forspoken, which I know is a game that I am incredibly excited for. I'm gonna let Calamity explain that a little bit more in a bit, and then this last picture that's kind of in the middle is called Redfall. It was a game that was just recently announced this past E3, and I know a lot of people are very excited about it. So, Calamity, did you want to talk about Forspoken a little bit?
Sure thing. So Forspoken is being made by Square Enix, actually, which is incredible because I absolutely love Square Enix. I'm a big fan of like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy. I really like Chrono Trigger. So I'm a big fan of Square Enix. Forspoken is the main character is black, like black, blackety black, 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 wearing tennis shoes in this fantasy world with a cape and like dragons. The whole aesthetic of it is just absolutely incredible. They haven't released a whole lot about it, but when I tell you, I saw a black woman hiding behind a rock and a dragon flying by, I burst into tears. It was absolutely amazing. I'm like, that's what this industry needs. And just seeing the excitement around it too has been honestly incredible. So not much again has been released about Forspoken. Not even really anything was released during E3, but definitely keep an eye out for that game. And then just to touch a little bit on Redfall, I don't know if you see Layla there. Her name is Layla. Big curly afro, bounced perfectly in the trailer, has big hoops, and does magic in this vampire world. I'm trying to remember. She's a scientist. She was in school
Mm-hmm.
for science before the entire apocalypse, the kind of going on, broke out. And actually, all of the characters in here are characters of color. Like you have somebody in the trailer who's speaking Spanish. It's just incredible to see a major studio because this is Xbox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yes,
I
this is
think this.
Xbox.
Yeah.
So they're Bethesda Xbox, and they just announced it this past week. Go watch the trailer. It's exciting. It's thrilling. It's cool. I'm so excited for this game. It's going to be amazing. And it's multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
Multiplayer. So you can play with your friends. I call Layla.
And I think what was really cool about Redfall in particular was something that I didn't think about when I saw the trailer for the game. So, a discussion that I was following on Twitter was talking about, like Calamity had mentioned, one of the characters during the trailer does speak Spanish. But it's the person that I was following mentioned that it was like unapologetically speaking in two languages. So like the character would just like swap from English to Spanish. There wasn't like translations on the screen, and so it was just like a peek into how like bilingual and multilingual people will often like think in both languages at the same time. And so being able to see that reflected just in a trailer was also really exciting to see just like the layers of all right, so y'all did really pay attention when you were making this game. All right, we love to see it. So yeah, these are some of the things that we're kind of excited that are coming in the future. And then I think we're going to try to get to some of the questions that I see coming through in chat. So if you do have questions, make sure that you are posting them over in that Q&A section so that we can make sure that we're answering some of those.
Mm-hmm.
So what's coming in the future is more representation in games. So we already talked about Redfall, but Aerial Knights Never Yield is a game that was actually recently dropped. It was made by his tag is Aerial Knight, and it was made by him in like his off time. So this was like his side passion project, and it's essentially a game where you play as a black man who's just like on the run. So it's a runner game like you would have seen in like old computer browsers, or like I guess if you've seen like the dinosaur game when your Chrome browser doesn't have the internet, it's like a more advanced version of that game.
Mm-hmm.
But he like remade Detroit and made it have like a Tokyo vibe to it as well. And so it was just like really, really cool to see all of the ways that like he really cared while he was making it in like bringing Detroit, the city, and like all of these different like iconic spaces in Detroit into this game. And that
Mm-hmm.
was with just like him doing it on the side. He didn't have a huge budget. And so just like thinking about as like gaming and BIPOC creators continue to enter into the game development space, like imagining what people can do once they have a budget is just so exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Because, man, yeah, that kind of goes into the more diversity in dev teams. I would really actually I was thinking about this when we were talking about Redfall. I would really like to see the dev team for that because it
Mhm.
looks like they did their research to the point where those people were actually within those teams, which is something we need to see so much more of. And there are spaces out there trying to do that, like Hey Glitch, which looks to fund and educate diverse creators in game development, and they also have a scholarship you can apply for, not a scholarship but like a grant, that's the word I'm looking for, you can
Mhm.
apply for assistance in creating a game. You like pitch the game idea and such, and they will that is the application process for that. But they also like to put out information for people of color about game development, about how to get into it, about how to pitch your game, just every piece of information that you need about that they like to provide. There's also Wholesome Games, which we talked about before. Had the Wholesome Showcase. They had so many incredible games, like Pizza said, that did feature people of color, that did feature the LGBTQIA plus community. So they are actively in there all the time. Their main goal is to promote more diversity in these teams and to promote the teams that are diverse into more of the mainstream. So they're really just out here doing the work. Out here doing the work. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I know something that we're both also looking forward to is seeing an increase in diversity in leadership positions and in senior roles at game development companies. Part of kind of the problem with game development as we see it is that there's like they're not like welcoming spaces for BIPOC and especially women of color. And so being able to see all of these women of color in senior leadership positions presenting at E3 was excellent. I just want to
Mhm.
see more of it. Like I want to see more particularly women of color in leadership positions cuz like it's just it hits different when you see somebody who looks like you walk out on that E3 stage and be like, "Yes, I'm the VP of like programming at." And just being able to see at major studios that women of color are stepping into leadership positions that aren't just limited to diversity and inclusion, like that hits different. That's
Mhm.
just it makes it seem even more possible that like we can be in these spaces and like dominate these spaces.
Yes, yes, definitely. And then we know that because of the lack of people in gaming, there's a lot of people out there who are giving more access to development, to educating people who want to get involved. Code Coven is a organization. They're actually from the UK, but they help people internationally who want to get into game development, to marginalized identities. So the LGBTQIA community included, but they offer scholarships, courses. I actually took a intro to game dev course this past spring, and they are the summer program that I just got accepted into, where I will be working for the next 3 months to help develop a game with other people. And just to kind of touch on the attention they give to understanding marginalized groups, I was extremely nervous to ask, because they asked kind of what position would you like to work in when it comes to developing these games. And I was having a conversation with someone in the application process, and I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if I was a producer. They said, wait, you didn't put that on your application. I was like, oh, well, like, I didn't think that I could. And they kind of, the why not kind of came enough that I kind of went, because I don't see other people like me in those spaces. Like, it kind of like dawned on me. So when the time came, that's actually the position that I'm going to be in when it comes to this course that I will be taking over the summer. So Code Coven is one of the incredible places that are trying to bring resources to people of color, to marginalized identities, and we want to see more. We want to see so much more of it happen. So yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm also a part of a group online called Enlight. It was founded by Eunice Chin, and it's a group that is focused on creating like essentially education for people who are interested in entering into esports and gaming as a career. So they provide like talks with top industry leaders, as well as just like opportunities for community members to kind of network with each other, network with people who are in the community who are already established in gaming. So it's just been really cool to see that opportunity as well. And so just continuing to see these spaces online grow that kind of offer endpoints to being at least starting a career in gaming and tech has been really, really exciting as well.
Mm.
All right. So this is just our contact slide. I'll leave this up for a little bit, but I also just want to make sure that we're getting to some of the questions that I see coming through in chat. So if you want to kind of get in touch with me, you can visit my website, pizzayeti.com. You can also find me on Twitter, where I'm at pizza_yeti.
Yep. And if you'd like to get in contact with me, there's my website, CalamityDarling.com. I'm very active on Twitter. So if you'd like to follow me or get in contact with me on Twitter, it's just CalamityDarling. Yeah, on Twitter.
All right. Production team, if you want to go ahead and stop the screen share, we can go ahead and answer some questions that came through in chat. All right, good deal. So it looks like the first question that we have is for someone who wants to get into gaming. What do you suggest regarding systems, games, etc.?
Oh, you're asking me? This is a
I
you
mean, yeah,
question.
you get to answer first.
you're the
I
tech
got to read the
techie
question, so
here.
you get to answer the
Oh,
question.
okay. I think research what it is that you might be interested in playing. Maybe look into your interests that you already have, and see, like, do you maybe tend to like more puzzle games? Do you think you'd be okay with platformers? Kind of start researching those, and then find those games and see which systems provide kind of the most access to those. I feel like the Switch is a really good maybe introductory console for people, because it does have such a wide variety of games. Like Doom's on there, but also some of these like more cute indie games. So I think that is maybe one of the and right now most accessible, because like the Xbox and the PS5 are
They
very hard
don't
to get right
exist.
now. They don't exist basically. So I definitely recommend the Switch. I love my Switch. And they do have a big highlight for indie studios and games as well. So you can kind of experiment around and kind of see what you're into. But yeah, that's my suggestion, Pizza.
Yeah, I feel like I would just echo basically everything that you just said. The most important thing is making sure that you are like essentially setting yourself up for success with getting into gaming. And so I think
Mhm.
sometimes it can get easy to be like caught up in, all right, so the PS5 and the Xbox Series X just dropped. Clearly that's where I should start. Where it's like, if I'm being honest, a majority of the time I'm playing games that I bought on my PC or I am playing on my Switch. Like Calamity said, you get a really wide range of games. And not to say that Xbox and PlayStation don't have those, but I would say a lot of the games that I have found myself gravitating towards over the last couple of years, like they run perfectly fine on my Switch. And so that is kind of what I have used because I had a Switch before I had a PC. So that's, I would definitely research what you think you might be interested in playing, and then finding where like the highest concentration of those games exist.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Um, yeah. So it looks like the next question that we had are tips on how to stream. So they're looking
Mm,
at equipment, maybe tips for Twitch. Um, I will say there are a lot of resources, particularly on YouTube, that I would recommend looking into. But in terms of just getting started, if you already have a PlayStation or an Xbox, you can actually, as long as you have a headset that has a microphone, you can legit just hit live from while you're playing the game. I think that that's a great way for people to get started because
mhm.
live streaming and content creation is quite a bit more difficult, I think, than people anticipate it being. So I don't know if this was the case for you, Calamity, but when I got started, it was a lot of just like me playing the game and trying to find things to talk about as I was playing. Cause like a lot of the time, chat will be quiet when you're just getting started. And so making sure that you are entering into the space with the mindset of, I'm doing this because it's something that I enjoy doing and
Mhm.
not necessarily I am doing this so that other people will watch me do it. I think it's really easy to get caught up in people are gonna love me. I'm gonna be famous. I'm gonna be rich because I do this. Like I'm not rich because I do this. I have a full time job that's apart from content creation because I gotta pay bills. So just making sure that you are kind of doing it because you enjoy it and not when you're getting started at least because you like need it to be your sole source of income. It's
You are
stressful.
no, don't. You are not going to, because like I said, I happened to get laid off and I had a lot more time on my hands. So while I was searching for jobs, I was doing content creation. And then unfortunately, getting into jobs was very difficult because, again, pandemic. So it just kind of worked out for me. And I had side jobs and things I was doing on the side. Right now, because I am kind of getting more involved in game development and I am part of the summer program, I don't currently have another job, but it's rough. It's real rough. I would say, just echo what Pizza said again. If you have a console, you can literally just get started with a headset that you can talk into and get comfortable talking to yourself. That's how I got started. I just turned on my PS4 and started playing Spyro and talking into a mic. That's where it started, literally around this time last year. So you just got to start somewhere and don't rush into things because it is expensive to get into and the
Hmm.
payout at first is not gonna cover it.
It ain't
So
there. It ain't there at the
don't
beginning.
quit your day job to be a streamer or content creator. Ease your way into it. Be smart about your resources and the things that you have. But if it's something that you love and it's something that you feel like you could really enjoy doing, 100% go for it.
Yeah. And then if you have other questions that you'd want to like cover, please feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I really enjoy having conversations about getting started with streaming. So that's if you're interested, please feel free to reach out. The next question is one that I can just easily answer because of my position with BGGC. Our membership applications are currently closed. We are planning on reopening. So the kind of rhythm that we work with that is we will open the applications for a little bit and then we will close them so that the team of community managers that we have time to kind of go through the applications that we receive and allow people to kind of get used to being a part of the community before we would kind of introduce the next group of people. So I think that it will be opening up again soon, but just make sure to just like follow BGGC on Twitter because that's typically where we will kind of post that applications have reopened.
Mhm.
Um, the next question is favorite game to play in versus favorite genre to create games.
Hmm. I really like creating, and maybe like at this point, it might just because of like my skill set and what I'm able to do, but I really enjoy creating like narrative games right now that have a heavy narrative and like dialogue. I created one during the spring called Pomsiety, where you literally play as a were Pomeranian on their first date with somebody. It's absolutely adorable, but it's not the kind of game I play, which is interesting. But I absolutely love it, even though it's completely different from like the fantasy high fantasy dragons magic kind of stuff that I usually get into. So yeah, I think that's where kind of the contrast for me comes from with that. They're definitely different, huh? I just thought of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think for me, I really just am all over the place with games, whether I'm creating content around them or not. I will say the only games that I typically will not stream are first person shooters. So the only
Mhm.
game that gets through that for me is Splatoon 2, and that's because it's less of a first person shooter and more of I'm just gonna throw paint everywhere that I can. Um, so sorry, this is why I have a water bottle right next to me.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
will typically play like Fortnite and Overwatch off stream with some of my friends, but I don't typically create content around those kind of that like genre of game. Thank you for the question about wall running. That was disrespectful, and you did not have to ask that in the middle of this panel. So I play a lot of different games, and occasionally they are games that involve like different kinds of movement. And I am notoriously terrible at games that involve either wall running or if you have to like slide down things. So it's a running joke in my community, and we have like a short video in the community of me just like literally seeing it in the distance saying, "Oh no," while running, walking up to it and immediately just falling off the stage. So thank you for that. Looks like we are coming out on time. So Calamity, just one other time, will you tell people where they can find you online if they're interested in engaging with your content?
Yeah, I'm Calamity Darling on all the things. Literally all the things. I was very lucky to be able to just grab that. So,
Mhm.
Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Calamity Darling. Yeah, and I do charity consultations. So if you are a streamer who is interested in getting into charity and want some like one-on-one consultation on where to start, hit me up.
Yeah, and then I am pizza_Yeti on most platforms. I was not as lucky as Calamity, so I could not claim Pizza Yeti on like any social media platform. So if you just add an underscore between pizza and Yeti, that's typically where you can find me online. I'm on Twitter. I have my website pizzayeti.com, and then I'm on Instagram, but predominantly you'll find me on Twitter and Twitch.
Mhm.
And yeah, I appreciate y'all coming through and hanging out today. I hope y'all had a good time. Again, if you have any questions after the panel, please feel free to reach out via social media. And I hope that y'all have a great rest of your conference.
Yes, enjoy the rest of the conference for sure. It's a good one.
Yeah.